And I'm going to introduce Alli Bolger, who is Brand Strategy Director with Colle McVoy. And Colle McVoy is our advertising agency and partner for many years. And Rachel Piacenza, who is RBFF's Marketing Director. And they're going to share with you some consumer trends that are really things to pay attention to and driving into the future. So I'm going to turn the stage to Alli and Rachel.
Thank you. Thank you.
How's everyone doing? Good. All right.
Hi, I'm Alli Bolger. I am a brand strategy director at Colle McVoy, RBFF's advertising agency. I've worked in advertising for 13 years, and as a brand strategy director, I help brands build better connections with their people. And so for RBFF in particular, I lead the research and insight development to help them better understand their customers and also to build that deeper connection with their messaging for Take Me Fishing.
We'll go next slide.
Oh, okay, we got our next slide here.
Yeah, so you guys know kind of who's up here on the stage. I'm Rachel Piacenza. I lead and oversee our consumer marketing and advertising campaign at RBFF. Hopefully you guys are all familiar with our Take Me Fishing and Vamos a Pescar brands. If not, you will learn a lot about them over the next few days. I've been with RBFF about 11 years, and when I first came to RBFF, I started on the state marketing and engagement side for a couple years, and then I moved over to consumer marketing, I'd say the last 6 or so years. Prior to that, I always like to give a shout out to my people at Wisconsin DNR, because that's where I really first started kind of getting into the natural resource marketing R3 realm. So shout out to, I think there might be 1 or 2 people here in person from Wisconsin. Yes, awesome. And I know there's probably a few tuning in virtually. When I was at my time at Wisconsin DNR, I did a lot of R3 work, I did marketing work, I did aquatic education, I did angler education, and that kind of led me over here to RBFF. One story I wanted to share specifically about fishing as to why this is really important to me is I had the opportunity and privilege to have somebody introduce me to fishing when I was 2 years old. And that's what's kind of fueled my passion kind of to this day, and probably similar to a lot of us in here, is that feeling, that passion that we get kind of for natural resources, for fishing. It really drives me to try to make sure that other people around the country have the same opportunities, and just opportunity really just to get out there and experience what a lot of us have experienced as kids. The thing is, things are changing, right? We don't always have that invitation now. Someone can't just take somebody. People are learning a lot just through the internet, right? People are now watching YouTube videos to learn to fish. It's not somebody just introducing them and taking them. So we have some good slides for you guys. I'm going to kind of let Alli take it from here, and I'll come back and kind of talk a little bit about what it means to fishing and boating.
Awesome. So yeah, as Rachel mentioned, we're talking today about trends that are going to steer fishing and boating into the future. But to start, we're going to just reflect on the state of the sport today. Obviously, it's no surprise to anyone in this room that we've seen record participation in outdoor recreation. That is a trend absolutely accelerated by the pandemic. In our graph here from Outdoor Foundation's 2021 report, we can see a green line that is escalating, rocketing upwards. That green line represents participants in millions. So millions of people getting into outdoor sports in the last number of years, even before COVID. Some of the most popular outdoor activities were running, hiking, and of course, fishing. So I'm sure we all have a lot of stories and a lot of data that we could talk about in terms of how popular these sports have become. But one way I love to tell that a trend has become mainstream is when it gets bougie. So camping got a glow up. You'll see, REI and West Elm partnered to release a line of camping gear this last year to elevate outdoor essentials and bring the comforts of home to the great outdoors. And in the top right corner, we have a photo from Collective Retreats. They are an outdoor luxury accommodations operator. They raised $23 million this last year for them to expand. They're now in Hill Country in Texas, Yellowstone, Vail, Governor's Island, and numerous other locations across the United States. So a lot of interest in luxury camping. Van life also became aspirational. We saw on Instagram, perhaps, a lot of our friends and family and connections upgrading their own vans to go and hit the country. But we also saw a flood of startups and rental startups coming into this space, particularly Outdoorsy, which calls itself the outdoor accommodations equivalent of Airbnb. They raised $120 million this last June to help scale their operations. So now you can also rent your perfectly Instagrammable luxury van and go hit the country with everybody else. So yes, the outdoors has become popular, and yes, a little bougeified. But that's because the outdoors and outdoor sports have really become vehicles for personal transformation. So we've used the outdoors to channel a better version of ourselves. We're not just going outside to get out of the house. We're going outside to escape the everyday realities, to relax, to get physically and mentally well, and to connect with our friends and our families. Some data here from Mintel just really shows both the mental health benefits and the connective benefits that people are using the outdoors to satisfy today. And those behaviors that we learned during the pandemic are not going anywhere anytime soon. We have some research here from the World Advertising Research Center, which shows that 71% of consumers are interested in starting a new outdoor leisure activity in the future. And 92% of families intend to stick with the activities they started in the pandemic. No surprise to anyone, fishing and boating have benefited massively from this boost. We had almost 55 million Americans fish at least once during 2020, which is the highest number ever recorded in all the years that we've been measuring. A record 4.8 million Hispanics also fished in 2020, and Black participation increased 7.4%, which is the highest in 3 years and represents 14.6% growth overall since 2019. But with this rising interest and participation, it's become very clear that fishing and boating still have more work to do among our underrepresented groups. We know that people of color cannot equally access or explore the outdoors as safely as other groups. We've got an article here to the right-hand side from The Guardian, which talked about the stereotypes and the fears that Black hikers face when they're out in the wild. Down in the bottom left, some research from the Center for American Progress that shows that people of color are more likely than white people to live in an area that is nature deprived. And this research from Mintel in the bottom right that shows in orange and red the very low index of Hispanic, Black, and low-income people that are participating in outdoor activities like fishing and boating. Our sports are still dominated by white and high-income participation. And women, particularly women of color, remain underrepresented in fishing and boating. So while RBFF's own special report shows that almost half of women have an interest in fishing, only 36% actually participated, which is the largest gap among all groups that we measured. Our female anglers also stopped fishing at a 10% higher rate than their male counterparts. And not surprising to many of us in this room, among those more likely to drop out of the participant pool were Hispanic and Black anglers. It's a trend that we see in many outdoor sports, not just fishing and boating. You know, from the get-go, a lot of girls are introduced to the outdoors. We have a lot of exposure, but our participation tends to lag behind the boys from the very beginning. And that participation gap widens as women age. So from age 26 to 66, women's participation falls off a cliff to less than 20% compared to 40% for their men. And that participation gap is particularly stunning for our women of color. 75% of outdoor participants are white. When we think about why this might be and why those gaps exist, our mind immediately goes to representation, or rather the lack thereof. It's hard to see yourself in a sport that doesn't see you. Data shows that only 30% of women feel accurately represented in media and advertising. Only 18% of Black women say they see themselves in the media they absorb. And 9 out of 10 girls say they compare themselves to what they see in media. So as marketers, we are at the forefront of a change in representation that consumers across all segments are looking for. This graph shows the percent of all groups, whether you're young, old, millennial, Black, Asian, Latinx, LGBTQ, all of these people took an action after seeing an ad that they considered to be diverse or inclusive. Representation in marketing can drive more consumer engagement and action and make our ad dollars work harder. So 64% of all US consumers said they took action after seeing brands demonstrate diversity in advertising. Almost 60% of Hispanic US consumers actively seek out brands that acknowledge their culture's unique traditions. And almost 70% of Black US consumers are more likely to purchase from a brand whose advertising positively reflects their race or ethnicity. Authenticity and representation in front of and behind the camera are vital to meaningfully connect with everyone. And women in particular have not felt equally represented in the outdoors space in our industry. 63% of women reported that they couldn't think off the top of their heads of an outdoor female role model. 6 in 10 women say that men's interests in outdoor activities are taken more seriously than their own. And 60% of women say the selection of women's outdoor gear is not the same quality as men's. It's taken a while for brands to catch on to half of the population's needs, but the last 5 years have seen a strong case for more accurate female representation in the outdoors media and advertising. We had the Outdoor Project declare 2017 the Year of the Outdoor Woman. REI launched their Force of Nature campaign. There was a Girls Will Be Girls campaign, which invited women to share the challenges that they face in the outdoors. And RBFF launched their own Women's Making Waves campaign in 2018. Some retailers as well have started to recognize that women are a huge economic force in the outdoors industry. So we know that women account for 63% of spending on activewear in the US, and over half of all outdoor participants are female. And the fishing and boating industry in particular has a major opportunity. I invite you all to do a Google image search for fishing and to see how underrepresented women are in this sport. And a lot of our retailers and manufacturers have that opportunity for growth as well. We tend to not make space for women and people of color in these sports. And RBFF has a much more inclusive vision of these sports. Their vision statement reads, RBFF is committed to spreading the joy of fishing and boating to all ages, genders, and cultures. We envision one nation united in our passion for fishing and boating, a nation committed to the pursuit of leisure activity on the water, a nation that embraces our fishing and boating heritage and conserves, restores, and protects the resources that sustain it. We believe the water is open to everyone. That's our why, right? And if we go out in our own backyards, I guarantee you all will see the same thing that we did walking around the streets of Minneapolis and just snapping photos of anglers on the street or anglers on the pier, anglers on the water. We know that the face of fishing today and the face of fishing in the future is young, it's female, it's diverse. Future-proofing our sport requires us to break free from the gravitational pull of our category messaging. It's very easy to fall into the gravity of this category, which is white, which is male, which struggles to make space for the voices that are the future of these sports. We have to resist the easy path as marketers. And we've already seen the potential of putting women at the forefront of messaging and communications. I mentioned RBFF's Take Me Fishing campaign for women making waves. It was launched in 2018, and this campaign had an 85% completion rate for its videos. I don't know when was the last time you did not skip a YouTube ad and watched it all the way through, but people did that 85% of the time for women making waves advertising. That's 15% higher than the industry average for our category. Our social content for this campaign also outperformed our own general market assets for Take Me Fishing with a nearly 8% engagement rate. Just to give you some context, Take Me Fishing usually averages at a very healthy 6.5% engagement rate, which is how often people like, share, comment on our content. And the industry average hovers at 2%. And we've amassed dozens of female influencers since launching Women Making Waves, a few of whom are here in the room with us today. But we have not even begun to scratch the surface of this audience's true potential. We know that women are a major opportunity, but they're also the gateway to our core growth audience, our active social families. This data from the Pew Research Center shows that moms typically plan the activities and manage the calendars even when they're working full-time. The purple bar is mom does all the work. The striped bar is mom shares equally with dad or her partner. And as you can see here, this represents a lot of responsibility on women's shoulders when it comes to planning family activities and figuring out what they're going to do for the weekend. Even in households where two parents work full-time, mom does most of the activity planning 54% of the time. That's the purple bar, most 54%. And moms are more likely to introduce their kids to fishing. So much like Rachel's story, having somebody to introduce you to fishing at a young age is so impactful for getting young people into this sport. And 85% of sons participated in fishing with their mothers, compared to 71% who participated with their dads. 63% of daughters also participated in fishing with their mothers, compared to 45% who participated with their fathers. And when it comes to outfitting the family with gear, tackle, licenses, We know that women drive 70 to 80% of all consumer purchasing decisions. Mom is going to be the one to do the research to figure out, oh yeah, we need a license before we get out on the water. And that's true when you look across countries and across race and ethnicities. 90% almost of women across the world report controlling or sharing daily shopping needs, compared to only 41% of men globally. And 86% of Hispanic women are the primary shoppers and decision makers in the household. I'm sure Snooki there in the top right is the primary decision maker in her household. So yes, women are the gateway to families. And women are also the gateway to the greatest growth in fishing and boating participation. We saw a 10% boost in female participation in 2020 alone. 10%. A massive gain, the largest ever recorded in the history of these sports. But what would it look like if we just brought women up to account for half of our fishing population? Because yes, while they grew 10%, they still only count for 36% overall of our anglers. And that should be half, right? They're half the population, they're half the family unit. That number should be 50%. And if it was, that would mean 15% growth for the sport overall. That would be 8.1 million new anglers. And that's not even counting the children, the family, the friends that these women would bring along with them. So 15%. It doesn't sound like much, right? But when we think about that, that's a 41% growth rate among women. That's 8.1 million new anglers into the sport. This is a major opportunity, not just for our female audience, but for all audiences. Portraying women in positive leading roles in advertising can boost brand relationship scores and choice intent scores for all demographics. That includes men, Black, white, Asian, gay, whatever, all demographics have a better relationship with your brand. In fact, they're 35% more likely to improve how consumers feel about your brand in the long term. And they're 20% more likely to choose your brand. So out of all the activities and sports available to them, they're 20% more likely to choose fishing and boating when you portray women in positive leading roles in just your advertising alone. So empowering women attracts all people to your brand. And it makes them want to spend more, which is great news for our licensing. Both female and male consumers spend more on brands that portray women accurately in ads. I'm going to hand it over to Rachel now, who's just going to talk about what this means for RBFF and the future for fishing and boating.
All right, you guys can kind of see where this is headed, right? I hope. I think that just the numbers alone, it's hard to really argue with that, just given the sheer size of this opportunity, on really what we can achieve together. This, let's just talk a little bit about what this kind of means for steering fishing and boating here into the future. How do you click it? Is it this one? Okay. Oh, thank you. Okay, so women, especially women of color, will be a core focus for our communications, marketing, and representation moving forward. We tapped into this audience, like Alli mentioned, a little bit in 2018. We're going to kind of go even harder in the next couple years. And especially like Alli mentioned, what we're seeing specifically from ads, from brands, from sports, if you portray women in a positive light, it is a win-win for everybody. It's really hard to argue that. You have longer brand relationship short-term behavioral change, which we want to see eventually be a long-term behavior change, that they pick up the sport and they don't give it up. So we're specifically not talking about excluding people. I want to be clear there, but really elevating women as the leaders of making decisions, et cetera. So they really are the key to these segments that we see up here, as Alli mentioned: families, youth, and multicultural. So for example, in terms of marketing and media, we're not gonna put any sort of creative assets on like an ESPN platform, because that skews heavily male. We would look to a platform, like a linear buy with Freeform, which is a subsidiary of Disney. That skews heavily female. I think it's about 64, 65% female. So that's where we would look to place a lot of this creative once it's completed. We're just gonna be a lot more intentional on what we do, where we are, and really how we show up. So to start, we're doing some exploratory research. We're actually in the current, like the early phases of it right now, to really understand the link that occurs between fishing and boating and other mental and emotional and life benefits for women in the US. We have a qualitative and quantitative portion of the research that we'll be conducting. We also have a behavioral component, which is gonna be really interesting, because I think that's really gonna see what really pushes women over the edge to participate in these activities. We know what's in it for us. We're gonna get more reach, we're gonna get access to more diverse audiences, we're gonna get more brand engagement, but what really is in it for women? Why should they care about fishing and boating? That's hopefully what this research is going to give us. We really wanna find that golden nugget. So results from that research will inform our next advertising and PR campaigns, really centered on a direct invite to women to try or reconsider or come back to fishing and boating. So just the timeline here on exactly where we are. We are currently in phase 1, so that is January through March of this year. We've been conducting research, we've been doing various outreach to influencers. As we move into phase 2, that's where we'll start a lot of our PR planning, our web development, pre-production. So that would be anything that really comes out of this research in terms of creative assets, et cetera. And then as we move into phase 3, which will be later this summer, we'll be doing creative production, industry engagement, media partnership content, and then we will plan to launch this in next calendar year. In May of 2023. So we're really kind of taking our time with this because we really want to get it right. There's huge opportunity. We want to make sure that we do our due diligence here. So here, kind of just a quote. The environment is where we all meet, where we all have a mutual interest. It is one thing all of us share. It is not only a mirror of ourselves, but a focusing lens of what we can become. So again, this kind of hits back on the fact of the importance of women seeing themselves as active participants in the sport is very important, that representation component. So how you can specifically help here, help all of us as an industry to achieve this. This will inspire every woman in the nation to try something new, to challenge herself, and to discover the self she can become on the water. We have a couple ideas here on this last slide. I'm sure there's going to be many more that you guys can think of in just seeing these couple here on the slide. But the first one is work with content creators who identify as women. Content creators, influencers. We have an influencer panel tomorrow. That will be a good one. Kendra's leading that one. Content creators, they know their stuff, right? They have the knowledge, they have the expertise. Influencers have that reach, they have that clout. Find both of them and work with both of them. Reach out to existing women groups in your community, whether it's church groups, whether it's any other just women's groups in general. Make them aware of who you are and that you are an option for them in terms of outdoor activities. Once they have the knowledge and the confidence to try to fish themselves, have them then lead the fishing clinics, the discussions, whatever. Make them the leaders. Make them the ones that are then teaching others. And then the last one, just fishing clinics and gear rental programs. I know those are very abundant in every state. Just make sure people know that those are there, because that's one of the big barriers is where can I find equipment and how do I go? We breezed through that.
We did, yeah.
We're here for questions.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm going to stand away from that.
Thank you both. We have a lot of time here for some questions. Let me move out of your way. And we have a request from folks virtually that if you have a question in the room, if you could please state your name and who you're with. They'd love to know who's in the room asking questions. And also virtual, please use the live Q&A and we will ask your questions as well. I see one question here. Oh, let me get Janice over there where the microphone is and then we'll get you.
Hi, I'm Janice Johnson with Texas Parks and Wildlife Department, and I can appreciate Alli's comment about women being the gateway to the greatest growth, but I think on the other side of that is women can also be the greatest gateway to the greatest churn. I know in our marketing work, we've looked at women's churn rates. I mean, it's great. RBFF has done a great job with the various campaigns and awareness and getting women to try fishing. And, I also understand, Frank Peterson, who used to say it's the agency's job to keep them. We'll bring them in, you've got to keep them. And I pretty much agree with that. And but I think we've been a little leery to really dive in to the whole women thing and targeted emails with images and messaging to women because they churn at high rates. So why spend all the effort, to do that if they're just going to churn anyway? So I'm very excited and grateful that y'all are going to do this kind of research and, find out more about, maybe why women haven't tried fishing, why they didn't keep fishing, and then even it comes to mind about swimming. We get a lot of drownings in Texas that are people out on the water, and a lot of people we find out don't know how to swim. So maybe there's some connection with, why are you not fishing? Oh, I'm not going to fish and go out on a boat because I can't swim. Well, maybe that's part of the equation. Let's, in our courses and clinics, make sure they know how to swim too. Anyway, and I love that, discover who they can be on the water. I think that's really good. So I'm looking forward to it, and thank you.
Janice, we got you on all those questions for the research. Don't worry, because that's definitely on our list too. Is yes, they do drop out very in larger numbers than men. So we're really trying to find that why.
Yeah, and figure out how we can have dedicated support for that group, which doesn't currently exist. So as you say, you can't do this halfway with all just awareness and then no support
Janine.
In terms of keeping people retained.
Janine.
Hi, my name is Janine Blair. I'm the founder of Fishionistas. I just want to say thank you. That's all I want to say is thank you, because we are so unseen in this industry. You were talking and I was trying to bat back the tears. You guys have done such an excellent job of making the hard speech, getting up here in front of all these people. I am the only one here that looks like me. This is what it feels like on the water. We're not seen. It took me half of my life to learn how to fly fish. I've reached out to so many people to help my group learn so many different things, and doors have just been shut in our face because of the color of our skin. It makes us feel unworthy, just nothing, and our money spends just like anybody else's. We spend billions in the fishing industry, and it's not even tapped into. I don't see me in Columbia commercials. I don't see me on fishing shows. I see bass to bill fish. And I see white men. It's just, I want to say thank you. That's all I wanted to say was just thank you for bringing this to the forefront, to giving it the attention that it absolutely, absolutely needs. Thank you for being brave enough to do this. Thank you, RBFF.
Janine, you're doing the hard work, not us, okay? You're doing the hard work, and we want more women like you out there. That's what we want, yeah. And it shouldn't be so hard. We hope we can make it easier. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Janine.
Questions?
Any other questions?
Comments?
Over here.
Hi, my name's Chelsea. I'm from Maine, Department of Inland Fish and Wildlife, and from a northern state with not a lot of diversity. How is RBFF willing to work with states and how to spread that diversity and how to reach our communities that aren't so populated? You know, we want to include the diversity, but how do we even start?
That's a great
Want me to
question.
start? I was just going to say, so we are trying to kind of populate, this is going to be high level first, so bear with me here, but I'm going to get there. Photo library, we're going to start getting photos that you guys can use that's going to show people that are more diverse. Hire people that look diverse so other people can see that, but don't just do it to check the box, okay? Do it, hire people that have the skill set that you need to get there. We also have Dave, I don't know if you're going to talk about first catch centers ever, but like during the conference, but we have the first catch centers, which are kind of the mobile units that go around to different regions and bring like the fishing equipment, like the tackle loaner stuff I talked about, to different communities and neighborhoods. I don't know if Maine has one. You guys should get one, yes. I think that would be a good kind of first start. Alli, do you want to add anything?
I was just going to say as well, from a national advertising perspective, we're going to be, as Rachel said, creating assets, photo libraries that represent these audiences, and then also targeting media buys into more underrepresented channels and groups so that we can get the message out and help people be seen.
And I'm just going to add to what these ladies are saying is that you mentioned photo library. We have a photo library with a number of images, and we've been working hard to make sure there's diversity and representation in those images. And we partnered with actually the Northeast Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies, where they did a photo shoot to represent diversity in people, in opportunities, in fishing opportunities, and to look like the Northeast. And then we're also working with the Midwest Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies, and then we'll work with the Western and Southeastern as well. And so all those images can be used by anybody for free in our photo library. And I know Joanne will mention a little bit more about that tomorrow, but that is an asset for everybody. Stephanie, I should ask if there's some questions online.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
We do have a few. There's one question. Are the research results going to include any local stats, information by state?
That's a great question. That's definitely a segment that we can do because people will be showing where they're from. We can always slice the data to give regional specific insights. So yes, we can definitely do that.
I think we're early on enough in the research that we can make that request, to be sure,
Absolutely.
at national and regional and state level.
Yeah.
Go ahead with one more, sorry, go ahead.
This one is really, it's sort of more of a comment, but there's a question in it as well. BB Dalton Harrison says, you know, helping the female churn is the National Wildlife Federation's Artemis sportswomen. Many states have ambassadors already in place. and this is a full retention effort. Is there anyone here from Artemis? Anyone? Anyone? Okay, so check it out.
Thank you.
All right, so I'm just going to stand up and look at everybody. I'm Jennifer Wisniewski from Tennessee, and I've heard presentations from RBFF for several years now on how we should be using women more in all of our imagery. And as I look around, I know that a lot of people have been here before and heard the same message, and I tend to sometimes go home and use the same pictures that are my go-tos and all of that thing, but this year I'm going to be the change, and I hope some of you guys will be too. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's hard to see.
Joanna, sorry. Over here. Sorry.
Hi, I'm Sarah Sutherland with the Oklahoma Department of Wildlife Conservation. I'm a child of immigrants. I'm a Hispanic woman. I did come to the outdoors later in life. Obviously, there were cultural influences. We actually grew up here in Dallas. So urban family, when you're talking about access to fishing, that was a challenge. Like in my family, we didn't participate in fishing just because I was a skateboarder. There was concrete, if that makes sense. So now I work in social media for the Department of Wildlife. When you guys are looking at influencers to work with, are you also looking for not only people who are diverse, but like diverse in skill level as well? Because we are finding influencers who kind of reflect me, people who came on an adult age. A lot of times with these diversity efforts, we're not only looking for people of color, we're also looking for people who resonate with that story of I had to come on as an adult. I'm not a great fly fisherman, but I will get on TikTok and figure it out, if that makes sense. So did you find anything in your research that reflected diversity and experience level also helps with that turn or introduction? Do people interact positively with kind of beginner level all the way to advanced, or is that a little more spread out?
I'm into Sarah, honestly. I'm looking to Sarah.
Yeah.
We have someone else here from Exponent who's an influencer guru.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Sarah Friedley with Exponent PR, sister company to Colle McVoy. To answer your question about the influencers, we are definitely looking at influencers who have a wide range of experience levels. One woman that we work with really closely, Jenny Anderson, she started fishing as an adult as well. And she's been a really, really great voice for RBFF, and we're continuing to work with her throughout the year as well. But we're just continuing to look for more partnerships like that. We work with a ton of avid anglers, but we're focusing more on some of the women who are just getting into fishing and boating or have maybe not even tried it before, and potentially pairing them with some more avid anglers as well. So I'm glad to hear that from you.
Yeah. And in terms of the research aspect of your question, as Rachel said, we're in the beginning stages of actually designing that research and really understanding what barriers and what opportunities exist. So we'll absolutely make sure that that's a question that gets asked for our female audience.
Joanna?
Yeah, and to your question, I'm Joanna Lario, the Digital Content Manager with RBFF, and I do all the blog content, page content, YouTube, and we've seen that those kind of stories are actually more relatable, and you feel more seen when it's something that completely it's out of the box. So we're definitely trying to work with these women and influencers that kind of don't tick those boxes and are more relatable. Yeah.
Ian.
Hello, can you hear me? Yeah. I just wanted to give a little anecdote, but I'm Ian with Idaho Fish and Game. We've been trying to test the waters with more diversity in age, gender, and ethnicity. And we had in our campaign last year a number of images that detailed that, but I wanted to let everybody know last year our highest performing ad was a female Hispanic millennial. And we had the most engagement from both males and females in that. And I thought it was super interesting because I thought maybe that would speak to certain audiences, but it actually was applicable across the board and our most effective ad. So just an anecdote to share with people as they're dipping their toe to be that change. It doesn't just reach those communities, it actually spans across genders and ethnicities.
That's really awesome to hear. Thanks for sharing your experience.
Thanks, Ian. Stephanie, are there more online?
I have a comment here from Rebecca Krogman. She says, thank you for this talk highlighting such overlooked groups. Women and people of color and other underrepresented groups have such potential for growth if we provided adequate support. This is not only good for the bottom line, but also for the fishing community. We bring diversity in perspectives, outdoor values, and can broaden the discussion of what fishing brings to our lifestyles, which I think we're all echoing here today.
Thank you for that comment.
Other questions, comments? Challenges, opportunities, all of it. Right here.
Hi, Andre Egley, Angler Education Coordinator, Colorado Parks and Wildlife. I was just wondering if you're going to do any research based on the education component, not just the marketing component. And you can't be what you can't see. So, like, if you come to a clinic and you see me and my gaggle of old white men, volunteers, because that's what I got, are you less likely to continue doing that because that's what you see and you don't feel welcome? Is there going to be any research on that, like working more with partners that are women organizations and having them lead the clinics and things like that, be more, have the person teaching you look like you as opposed to like me?
I can certainly understand the anxiety, and honestly, that is definitely a big part of the research that's going to dig into the barriers throughout the whole journey. So barriers in terms of advertising, barriers in terms of behavior, education, the whole gamut. We're hoping to see what are the biggest barriers to tackle first. And certainly if that rises to the top, that will be something for us to tackle very, very quickly in terms of getting more representation behind the camera and hiring a more diverse group of educators.
I see this research now having many layers. So this might be the first of many research projects, which I'm not mad at.
Yes, it's quite the big initiative.
I was just going to say one point. I was just going to make a point. Rachel Auslander, Partnerships and Development at RBFF. We also, don't forget, some of our industry members also do some education that you might be able to partner with them. I know West Marine, Marine Max, they do events that are women boating events, and I believe they are mostly taught by female boaters. And so always look around also to see if you can partner up with some of the industry members in your area.
Barb.
Okay, I just want to make a quick comment. When I think about a state agency and we keep talking about what we need to do, I think mostly we need to give up some of the control and really work on empowering partners who are in education, who are in the outdoors, whether it's schools, local community groups. I know when we talk about that diversity, we don't have it in our agency and the turnover is really low, so if that's the only way we're going to go, but there's a lot of diversity in our partners, so we really need to look to that and really talking about lifting them up and increasing their capacity and supporting them versus us thinking what we personally can do. And then the other thing, when we look at what really appeals to people and the levels of experience, I've been fishing a really long time and I started really young, but I do it for fun. I don't want to be hardcore. I'm not an avid, if you look at my license purchase, yes, if you define it by that, but I do it for fun and for release. And that's where a lot of our participants are, and we really need to think about what do they really want versus what we think they want or what we'd like them to aspire to. So just a couple comments.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Real quick, is this on? Hi, this is Samantha Petter. I work for Terra Technology Group, but I wanted to put a pitch out there because Artemis isn't here. I volunteer on their leadership board. One of the areas we're looking at to help agencies also increase retention of female anglers is serving in leadership roles on their commissions or their local, state, or nonprofit boards. So there's a training coming up this weekend with a grant sponsored by National Shooting Sports Foundation to accelerate women leaders into conservation leadership roles. So we already have like 200 women signed up from across the country. It's virtual, it's a pilot, it's one of those things that starts with just, a small idea. It's already branching out, but it's not just about getting women into the door and keeping them active as participants. It's on the conservation side of that too, and playing that stewardship role. And women are very capable of doing it, it's just they often don't know how to ascend into those roles because it's not like directly in front of them. So that's what we're targeting. Check out Artemis Sports Women, the training's this weekend. We can share more information too.
Thank you, Samantha. Comments, questions, things to share from what you all are working on or partnering on? Yeah.
Hi, Tim Schaefer with the Pennsylvania Fish and Boat Commission. And when Sam mentioned about leadership within commissions, one thing we do a lot in Pennsylvania is work with state legislators, so state House and Senate members, and more women are coming to stock fish with us. We also package up every spring safe boating messages where we write the script for them, set up with a film crew outside the state capitol. It looks like it's theirs. They distribute it through their networks, and more women legislators are doing those with us. And we just had a couple of them actually come to there's Eastern Sports now, or now the Great American Outdoor Show, which is the biggest outdoor show in the country, happens in Harrisburg, and we had a couple women legislators come to our booth to film messages to pump out. So don't forget those state reps, state senators, because they're oftentimes the one that will ultimately wind up in Congress and be the ones who might vote on the next reauthorization of Dingle Johnson, Wallop Roe, or whatever else it might be.
Thanks, Tim. Stephanie, are there others online?
We do have a question here. Are there any states working on clinics or local events specifically for women? Anyone have any examples of stuff they're doing in their agency?
Is it Maine?
It's me again. So I run the Becoming an Outdoor Woman program in the state of Maine, and we, from that program, have developed an additional supplemental program called Sustain Me. So Becoming an Outdoor Woman started in Maine back in the early 1900s, and we have been providing hunting, fishing, and recreation opportunities for women ages 18 plus across the state for many years, and we host it 3 times a year, so we offer different seasonal opportunities. In Maine, we get to take advantage of our fall, winter, spring, and summer activities, and then through that, we noticed that a lot of moms want their kids or their spouses to be involved with them, so that's where Sustain Me came from. And it targeted the change in the pandemic where folks were interested in sustainability and not just the hunting and fishing recreation, but agricultural opportunities as well. So we are offering things like fermentation and planting a garden or wildlife tracking. So it's not just those traditional hunting, fishing, boating, but we also offer everything outdoor recreation. And those are some really great programs. I know other states offer bow as well. It is national, but that's what we are focusing on in the state. So if anybody has questions, come see me.
Thank you. Yes, sorry, over here.
Is this on? Yeah. Rebecca Hillebrand, Louisiana. I'm our project lead for our women's fishing courses. We offer in the spring generally a 101 course, which is about an 8-hour course at one of our public facilities, where we do everything from knot tying, setting up rigs, just getting them used to the actual basics of fishing. We provide a fishing guide, ideas of where to go, basic fish ID. We even do fish cleaning because we know that's one of the big barriers. Like, I have a fish, but now what do I do? And then from there, we also offer sort of a 102 opportunity where we go to a weekend course where they spend an entire Saturday fishing. And we focus on things more practical and then trailering also. And then we have extended education courses that once they're in our network, they constantly get emails from us throughout the year of different opportunities, including like our state's BOW mini workshops and different things like that.
Thank you.
Do you want me to share what we're planning to do with like kind of like
Our teacher base is a mix between men and women. To go back to your question, like I said, I'm the project lead and I get up there and teach the majority of the coursework. But then we also have our volunteer base, which does consist of a lot of old white retired guys. And we have had women come to us and say, at first they were kind of like, oh, but then by the end of the workshop, because our volunteer base is so generous and they're just so excited to be there and just get people into the sport, that it doesn't matter at the end of the day. Everybody's just so happy to learn and to have that knowledge, so.
Thank you.
I wanted to add on to what you were saying. It kind of got me thinking, sometime within the phases that we're going through here for a lot of this research and production, et cetera, we want to kind of collect and collate all of the women's groups that are out there in all of your states, as well as kind of the Becoming Outdoors Woman and some of those groups, to put on the Take Me Fishing either map or website, because when women come in and want to know where can they go, nationally it's a little tougher, but when they get to the state, then they can see like the level of detail, just because that community is so important, right? You want to kind of do stuff with people who look like you, who want to fish with you. So in one of our phases here, probably in the next few months, we're kind of going to start reaching out to you guys for those lists of groups.
Hi there, Aubrey Arrington with Fishbrain. So this isn't a program that we do, but I know about it because I'm engaged with it locally in Southeast Florida. So Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission partners with the Girl Scouts and a local environmental education group. They do a Fish Like a Girl. And so it's basically most of the day Saturday, the girls trash talk and have these great Fish Like a Girl shirts. And they go through everything from not tying to fish ID to regulations. Fish Rules has partnered on the regulations with them. And then they actually go out and go fishing. And so it's really been a super successful program that it's a partnership, Florida Fish and Wildlife, Girl Scouts, and then a local environmental education group.
Thank you. Stephanie, online.
Hi, we are getting some really fantastic comments online from our participants about women's facing programs in their states. And I probably don't have time to read all of them, but Maryland, South Carolina, New Jersey, Iowa, and Arizona. And I'm thinking we should probably collect all these and share them out with the group after. If you're looking to do something like this in your area, then you can reach out and connect. I also just have a couple of quick comments on some of the conversation here. To your question about do women need to lead the courses, I think as a general rule of thumb, it's always good to have your target audience in that position, but it could even be through partnership, as Barb mentioned, or invite a social media influencer in who wants the attention, wants to meet other women in the area, but is an expert in her area. That could be a way to tackle it as well. Also, one other thing on the motivations and barriers to getting in the sport, Barb, you had said something about just wanting to do it for the fun of it, right? Well, it's really interesting, and I hope we learn more in this research this year, that we do see that between women and men, the motivations for women, their primary motivation for going fishing is to be with family and friends and relax and have fun. Whereas for men, it's to catch the big fish. They want to catch fish. That's why they're there. So the marketing has to be different, of course, to attract them. I just wanted to point that out. We do have that one tidbit, but should be learning more.
Thanks, Steph. And folks, you can see that chat online in the app. If you get in there, you can see the chat for the session too and take part in that. And if you have more questions for these folks. Oh, sorry, one more question.
Actually, it's more of a comment, and thank you for the last young lady, I couldn't see who you were, who mentioned that so much of what the women's market we find, I'm Shirley Heal, by the way, I'm with the United States Power Squadron America's Boating Club. We're a 501c3 organization that does teach boating safety, wearing of life jackets. We work closely with all of the educational folks in our industry. And naturally, we're looking for diversity as well. Many of our women are officers and teachers now. But we do find that this family aspect is what really draws in the women. If they can be there. Thank you for mentioning that. I just wanted to say that. We find also if we're at a boat show or something and we're advertising our classing, the first thing you do is you walk out in front of the the wife and the family, because she's the one who's making those decisions about family safety and all those kind of things. So, I think it has a lot to do with the churn rate that was discussed earlier, as far as women and their connections to their family, which comes first, and things they have to do there. So more things they can do family-oriented wise, I think you'll get much more participation from the women. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you all for the questions, comments. You can find Rachel and Alli on site and or in the app, and I really want to thank you both for sharing all the insights and direction and really inviting this conversation and challenges for everybody. So thank you.